Hey, it's Norm from Tested.
And Frank from Tested.
And this is part 4 of our video series showing you how Frank built the Rancor.
Frank and friends.
And friends built this Rancor. Right now, we're actually in front of the mold. So first of all, thank you to modelspace.com for sponsoring this project. Without you guys, we couldn't have done it at Comic-Con. Thank you guys so much. And for part 4, we're talking about the mold.
Yeah.
Tell me about this mold, because that sculpture was massive. How do you go about molding something like that?
Well, I didn't know what to do first, because it's kind of a big, complicated shape, and it's got these big like tusk things here. And at the end of the day, I decided to just shim it right down the middle, just so that it'd be easier to open and get the parts out. And so basically, that's putting really thin metal shim stock just straight down the middle of the sculpture. And then I was able to do both sides of epoxy at the same time. I had Regina and Nico, who have helped me on molds before. All three of us chipped in, and we banged that mold out in about a half a day.
Is that painting epoxy on the side and then covering that with fiberglass?
Yeah, it's the epoxy surface coat and then epoxamite laminating resin. Yep.
And we're actually looking at the inside of the mold. That sculpture is gone.
Gone.
That giant clay, how much did it weigh again?
It was about 250 pounds of clay. 250
pounds of clay Rancor sculpture gone. The remnants of it, maybe here or there. How did you clean that out?
It took about a whole day of just picking at it. And then once we got most of it out, we took the mold to the car wash and just hosed out all the rest of the residue.
Oh my God. So you have the inside, the negative of the shell. And today we're gonna show how you actually cast that.
Yep.
So what's the first step for that?
Well, first thing is to close the mold up and bolt it up.
Okay.
So when we did the shim stock, we bent the shim stock in different places to kind of form keys so that it lines up perfectly.
Nice. Okay, Frank, the two halves of the mold bolted together, tight, and then let's talk about the material. Latex?
Yeah, we're just going to paint it in a latex skin and then back it with a polyfoam, a real soft polyfoam.
And those things will bond together so they'll feel like one piece?
The latex and the polyfoam don't really bond really good, so sometimes I'll put in a little bit of cotton in there to give it a little bit of mechanical bond, or you could spray in some spray glue, and the spray glue will kind of give it a little bit more grab.
All right, let's paint the inside of this thing.
You don't want to put it on too thick, because then it won't dry. So you want to kind of spread it on thin and build up multiple small layers instead of one big thick one.
Frank, so while the head of the Rancor is in the mold, forming up right now, let's talk about the skin.
Yeah.
So the foam of the suit, it's flat foam, but the Rancor has this kind of leathery hide.
Wrinkly texture.
Yeah. How are you going to make that?
Well, we have the form that Ben built, and we're going to build on top of that with a really, really thin, super soft foam. And we can just kind of glue it on and fold it and wrap it around. And then for like big things like his toes and stuff like that, we'll cut bigger pieces and then kind of fold it around to make it look like it's a toenail coming out of the skin and stuff like that.
So it's just more foam, but you're applying it in like more of like a fabric pattern. So let's take a look at the feet.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. There goes your Rancor feet. Looks pretty smooth right now. So again, to recap, this is L200?
This is L200, and then there's a foam distributor around here called Atlas Foam, and this one is called Super Soft from them. It's just a really soft, like mattress foam.
Okay. And then let's leave that there, and we'll pull off. So this example is the Super Soft.
Yeah, that's how it comes in a big flat sheet.
It's pretty thick, about an inch and a half thick.
Yeah, and so I'll cut a piece of that. Let's set the foot on top of here.
Okay.
And I'll figure out like let's see, like how I want to do the toe. Like each toe has a little like nail coming out of it.
So we have the super soft foam.
Yep, I cut it out with a turkey cutter.
Ah, very good. Perfect.
So there's not a ton of really great reference for his toes. Like in this picture that I found on the internet of Phil working on painting the finished sculpture, you can kind of see that there's a toe kind of coming out the side here. It's got 3 toes, one on the front and then 2 on each side. So what we'll do is we'll take a piece of foam, we'll just kind of figure out how this thing gets shaped so that'll be that like 3rd toe right there. Like a lot of this is just kind of like bending stuff around and figuring.
It's pretty malleable.
Yeah.
But you're going to want eventually full coverage. Right now, you're starting with the bigger forms first.
Yeah, so just kind of quick block out stuff. So I can do that. I can glue that onto there.
Spray adhesive. All right, so you got the big block.
So it's just kind of a form. Once the stuff goes, I'll scissor it and clip it and form it a little bit more. But this stuff is like real thin.
It's the same material though.
Yeah, same material, just cut super thin. So I could take a piece of this, like that, and so you see how he's got a big wrinkle right on his toe, right there. So if you fold that over, that forms that wrinkle. So more glue.
And this is something you're eventually going to paint all over.
Yeah, everything will be glued and sprayed and.
So really, you're worried right now only about getting the form.
Making the forms, yeah.
Yeah.
So there you go. Now you have that little cuticle that toe will come out of. So once that's snipped, then it looks like it's got a couple little folds. So what I can do, and give it another fold right there. So now it's big wrinkles.
Yeah.
So basically, I'm gonna just have to start kind of at the bottom up and just work my way up with this foam and kind of gluing it and tacking it in place and just create the wrinkles. And you know, some of the stuff is smooth, so I could just skin it and put it on there, and then. And
you can just like even pull the wrinkles and just heat some, you know, just glue them to each other.
Well, the other thing I could do is I could also take a soldering iron and I could actually draw in finer wrinkles. So once I get a bigger chunk of the skin, I could do a little finer details with a soldering iron.
Wow, it really is sculpting with foam. Whew. Nice fold work. That's really cool. You said it's just like sculpting with scissors on foam?
Yeah, pretty much. Just using a pair of scissors and kind of scissoring down some of the shapes. Like once I get into his the spikes on his back, like that'll be a lot of this big stuff that I just kind of have to shape. Same thing with this big shoulder pad things. A lot of that's just gonna have to be shaped with a pair of scissors.
And then to finish and paint this off, how are you gonna do that?
Pretty much you hit it with spray glue, and that kind of gives it seals the surface. Then once the surface is all sealed, then I can just paint it with whatever.
Airbrush, paint.
Airbrush, hand paint.
Awesome.
And I can also like spray latex through an air gun. There's a special kind of air gun to spray latex, and I could do that if I need places that have different textures and stuff. Because if you look at it, you know, some areas are kind of smooth and some are a little more bumpy, and I have to try and mimic what was probably sculpted. So, you know, it's going to take a combination of a lot of different techniques.
And there's a lot more work to be done on here, but we definitely want to watch you finish at least the head. So we're going to check in on that mold of the Rancor head and trying to finish some of that up. And we'll be back right after this commercial break. All right. After how many coats of latex?
Maybe about 10.
10 coats of latex to build up that skin. That's still not that thick.
No, it's not.
So
we need to be careful about the weight, so I don't want to put on too thick of a skin, which is why we're using latex and polyfoam to begin with, instead of doing something like silicone or something fancier. I want to say weight.
All right, so the polyfoam reinforces it, builds it, makes it rigid.
I mixed little batches of polyfoam and just kind of poured it in sections so that it just kind of made a shell.
Okay.
And
then now it's time to get it out of the mold. Surprise! Here it is. That was simple.
I already demolded it. Came out real easy, but you can see it's not like a super thin or a super thick skin. And then if you look on the inside, it's just a bunch of batches of polyfoam.
It's poured in.
Yeah, just little bits, and then it's just thick enough to give it some structure so that it doesn't, the latex doesn't flop around.
All right.
But we want, it's still a little heavy, so we'll have to figure out how to mount it.
Now, right out of the mold, because of where you created that seam line, there's gonna be a little bit of cleanup needed.
Yeah, I gotta trim all this seam and patch some of the little spots.
Okay, but it looks good to you?
For the most part, it looks good. There's a couple of spots that looks like we didn't get the tooth area all the way cleaned out, so there's a void there. So I'll just rebuild that. There's some cotton and latex, like when I did with that skull.
Exactly.
But I'll do it a little more refined, so it's smooth and not like crusty.
But it retains the wrinkles, the folds of that sculpture. No teeth.
No teeth. When we were about to mold it, we pulled all the teeth out, and I made a silicone mold of it, just a silicone dump mold like we've done before, and then poured resin in there. So
resin teeth.
They're just resin teeth.
Yeah, and then you could paint these separately or finish them separately and just plug them in.
Yep, and they're all numbered. Some are numbered and some are lettered. Starts down here with number 1, goes all the way across, and then A up here and goes all the way across.
Fantastic. All right, so I'll let you get started cleaning this up.
Cool.
So Frank, I see that to do the patching, you're just snipping off that extra flash and then just painting more latex?
Putting in some thickened latex and then stippling over top of it to kind of retexturize it, because there's a bit of texture on top of this already.
Right.
So it'll just take a few more layers and I'll work my way around the whole thing.
Right, and then fill up any of the holes in that mold. But let's talk about painting.
Yeah.
Because the paint is going to really finish this and make it look cool. What's your approach going to be?
Well, this is latex, and the best thing to paint latex with is rubber cement paint, which is the same thing we did on Zoidberg. It's rubber cement thinned with naphtha or rubber cement thinner, and then you mix oil paints in there for the pigment, and then brush it or airbrush it, and that's pretty much it. So I'm going to follow the pictures that I've gotten from Phil and that I've gotten off of screen grabs from Return of the Jedi, and just try and match the paint job, and it'll be the same thing on the whole body.
Are you going to do a big base coat first and then go into details, or just piecemeal, piece by piece?
I think what I'm going to do is sort of similar to what we did when we painted the model kits, where I brush in a color and wipe it off, so that way it sits in the cracks, and then I'll slowly build up the brown color. So I'll start with a really dark, like probably almost black, just to hit in all those creases.
Yeah.
And then I'll start building up the browns and layer the browns in there.
That's going to be awesome to see. Let's check that out and let you get to painting.
Cool.
After a little painting, how do you feel about this?
It's a good kind of trial run. I think this is going to be another one of those cases where I start to paint, and just like Zoidberg, tomorrow morning I'll wake up and start all over again.
Wow. Well, at least you know how the paint's sticking to it.
Yeah,
looks like you're doing some washes.
I think I went a little dark, and so I want to lighten it up a little bit, give it a little bit more lighter browns.
Okay. And it's strange because you're looking at such a small part of it, but you're also painting both sides. It's gonna be big. You have to look at it from a distance.
Yeah.
I saw that as you were painting, you're also taking pictures of it and looking at your phone. That's a technique you do.
Yeah, a lot of times when you're looking at it with your eye is not necessarily how it's going to photograph or how it's going to look to other people and stuff like that. So I take a picture on my phone, and it kind of gives a fresh perspective and a little bit different color kind of space. Whether it's your phone or sometimes I'll use my SLR, and that'll give me completely different like kind of viewpoint. And that's a trick that I've learned from being a makeup artist also. When you're doing makeup on somebody and it has to go in front of camera, to look at it just in a mirror or in person doesn't really tell you what the camera is going to see. So this is going to get photographed down at Comic-Con, and I want it to look good in person and in cameras.
Well, by now you may have already seen this at Comic-Con. Frank, you have a little more work to do.
Yep.
Finishing this, patching it up, building out the skin of that Rancor.
1 week to go.
1 week to go. But we're going to time travel further ahead so you guys can actually see it walking at Comic-Con.
Yep.
Thank you, Frank, for working on this amazing Rancor project. And thank you guys for watching, and also D'Agostini USA, modelspace.com for sponsoring the Rancor project. Hope you guys learned something. And if you have questions about the fabrication process, foam stuff, you can ask stuff on the comments,
Yep.
and you and Ben maybe chime in and help out. It's been an amazing project.
It's a lot of fun.
A lot of fun. I'm glad you're having fun.
Oh, of course this is fun. Even if I wasn't doing this for a living, this is what I do for fun.
Oh, that's awesome. And we love Star Wars as well. So we'll see you guys next time. I'm Norm.
I'm Frank.
We'll see you guys.